I'm going to start recording. Today is May 6th and the time is now 3 p.m. So maybe we should write May 6th. Can you write this? Just May 6th, 3 p.m.? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my name is Amy. Your name is?
Maria. Arham.
Kaylee.
Hi guys. Thank you for your participation. You will participate in this task as a team. And I will be recording the session. Let me just make sure it's recording. Yes. And I just gave you the instruction sheet, the envelope to each of you. Don't open up the envelope yet. And this one answer sheet that you're gonna do together as a team. You and your two teammates will solve a written murder mystery using the clues provided. Please do not look at the clues yet. Wait until I read the instructions to take a look at your clues. After the instructions, you will begin 5 minutes to read the clues quietly to yourself. When prompted, you may begin to discuss the mystery, your clues, and your ideas in order to reach a consensus-driven solution. The session will continue until you believe you have the correct answers as a team. When you believe you have the correct answers as a team, write down who you believe the murderer is, what the weapon was used, the time of the murder, the place of the murder, and the motive for the murder. There is only one correct response for each of the 5 parts of the solution. A sheet of paper and pencil have been provided so you could write down your team's answer. When finished, submit the sheet of paper with your team's answer to me, the proctor, Amy. Your team must come up with a consensus on each of the 5 parts of the solution. You may not turn in any solution or part of the solution without the rest of the team agreeing upon it. Here are the rules. Once prompted, during the first 5 minutes, when I say, read your clues in silence and don't share any information with the other group. Do not exchange your clues with your teammates. For example, you're not allowed to hand your clues to another person or show your clues to your teammates. You're not allowed to walk around the table and switch seats to see each other's clues. The only way to share the information about your clues is through verbal discussions with your group. Like participants can't rewrite the other person's clues. Clues must be verbally shared. Do not look at each other's clues. After the first 5 minutes is up, you'll be prompted to begin discussion. If you have a question, raise your hand and me, Amy the proctor, will come to you. Before we begin, do you have any questions? Okay, great.
So we can only discuss each other's clues. Like
Right.
we can share them with each other, right? They're not
Verbally.
a secret. Right. We just can't show each other the
Right,
clues.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Perfect. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You could open up your envelopes and begin. Okay, you could begin sharing in your clues or.
Okay, so my first one was that Mr. Jones shot an intruder in his apartment building at 12 midnight. But then my next clue said like the elevator operator reported to the police that he saw Mr. Kelly at 12:15 a.m. But then
Who saw him at 12:15?
the elevator operator.
Okay.
I have a clue that says the elevator man saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Scott's room at 12:25 a.m. And
Then he went off duty at 12:30. The elevator man.
okay.
12:30.
But then Miss Smith said that nobody left the apartment building between 12:25 a.m. and 12:45 a.m.
But then the elevator man said that he saw Miss Smith in the lobby of the apartment building when he was going off duty.
Miss Smith saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Jones' apartment at 11:55.
Okay. And then Mr. Jones shot an intruder in his apartment building at 12 midnight.
Mr. Jones had told Mr. Kelly that he was going to kill him, and there was a knife that was found in Miss Smith's yard that had Mr. Scott's fingerprints on it. And then the elevator man saw Mr. Kelly and he was bleeding slightly, but he didn't seem badly hurt.
Yeah, 'cause
And then a knife with Mr. Kelly's blood on it was found in Miss Smith's yard.
and
Yeah.
then
So that's the knife Mr. Jones used
Yeah.
to stab him.
the bullet taken from Mr. Kelly's thigh matched the gun owned by Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelly had destroyed Mr. Jones's business by stealing all of his customers.
When police tried to locate
So
Mr.
that's-
Jones after the murder, they discovered that he had disappeared.
They found Mr. Kelly's body to be dead for an hour when it was found, and it said that at 12. What did I get? 12:30.
Mr. Kelly's bloodstains were found in Mr. Scott's car.
Mr. Kelly's bloodstains were found on the carpet in the hall outside Mr. Jones' apartment.
It was obvious from the condition of Mr. Kelly's body that it had been dragged a long distance.
Yeah. So if it was
His body was found in the park.
Okay.
okay.
At 1:30 a.m.
Mr. Kelly's wife disappeared after the murder. Oh, and the elevator man saw Mr. Kelly's wife go to Mr. Scott's apartment at 11:30 p.m.
The elevator man said no. Miss Smith often followed Mr. Kelly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Kelly's wife frequently left the building with Mr. Scott.
So his body was found at 1:30.
And nobody left the building from 12:25 to 12:45.
And
That's what Miss Smith said.
yeah, and he said the coroner said the body had been dead for an hour, so that means he died at 12:30.
Yeah. His body was found 1:30?
Mhm.
Okay.
And there was blood in the car, so he killed him at home and dragged him to the car into the park.
Into the park, yeah. And that's why the bloodstains are in the carpet in the hall outside Mr. Jones's apartment.
So like,
And you could see
did it happen in 15 minutes because the elevator operator?
He left at 12:30.
Okay.
elevator operator. So the murder was probably committed at 12:30. And then
He dragged him to the car into the park.
yeah, and then the body was found 1:30
Yeah,
in the park.
it was found at 1:30. Yeah.
Okay.
So you said something that like the elevator operator saw him slightly bleeding and he was leaving.
When the elevator man saw Mr. Kelly, yeah, he was bleeding slightly, but he didn't seem badly hurt.
Okay. So was that at 12:15 a.m.? Can we say it was then? Or
That he was stabbed at 12:15.
You probably.
oh, I also have one that said only one bullet was fired from Mr. Jones' gun. Like there was only one bullet, and then that bullet was found in Mr. Kelly's thigh. like it matched his gun.
Yeah, when discovered dead, he had a bullet hole in his thigh and a knife wound in his back.
Okay.
Wait a minute, so Miss Smith saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Jones' apartment at 11:55.
Can we say like, I don't think the bullet necessarily killed him, because if it was his
I
thigh,
think it was the back one.
Yeah.
I think it was the stabbing in the
Yeah.
back.
He probably couldn't have walked if it was the thigh wound, but I think
Yeah.
the back wound is the
That's
one that
probably
killed
why
him.
he was bleeding slightly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Saw
it
him.
was, yeah.
Maybe he was trying to run away and then he got him.
If the elevator man saw him bleeding, did he do nothing? I don't know. Like, if you saw him bleeding, I think you should
Do
call
we have the
police.
time that the elevator man went off duty?
12:30.
12:30, he went off duty.
It doesn't say here what the time he saw Mr. Kelly, so I'm not sure exactly.
The elevator man saw Mr. Kelly's wife.
I have a time for when he
We
saw
can only
Mr.
leave the
Kelly,
building.
but I don't know if it's like,
So, is it Mr. Jones or Mr. Scott who killed him? Or both of them?
because if the elevator operator said to the police they saw him at 12:15 a.m. and he went off at 12:30, then like,
This,
It's like Mr. Jones had told Mr. Kelly that he was going to kill him, and then but they found the knife that killed him in Miss Smith's yard with Mr. Scott's fingerprints on it.
and he went to Mr. Scott's apartment at 11:30.
and at 12 Mr. Jones shot someone.
Mr. Kelly had destroyed Mr. Jones' business.
Where's Mr. Scott?
Yeah.
Where is he?
Mr. Kelly, hold on. What ended up happening here? These two guys. Miss Smith saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Jones' apartment building at 11:55. Okay, so
But at 12:30, Miss Smith was also in the lobby of the apartment building.
at 12:30.
Because it's when he went off duty, and it said that he went off duty at 12:30.
Miss Smith has said that nobody left the apartment from 12:25 to 12:45. So, and then Mr. Kelly went into Mr. Scott's room at 12:25 a.m. The elevator man saw that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mr.
that was
Kelly.
before his shift ended.
Maybe. Hold on.
Then when he went off duty, he saw Miss Smith in the lobby. But then, if he died at like 12:30, like once he went to Mr. Scott's room, he died.
Maybe he got shot by Mr. Jones and then wobbled to Mr. Scott's apartment.
Yeah.
And maybe that's when the doorman saw him and then Mr. Scott ended up stabbing him.
Mr. Scott, like he just went into Mr. Scott's like.
Maybe they
House.
live in the same building. Because Miss Smith saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Jones' apartment at 11:55. So 11:55, he's at Mr. Jones' place.
Mm-hmm.
But then his blood stains are found all over Mr. Scott's car, and Mr. Scott's fingerprints are on the knife. So
So-
Mr. Scott stabbed him. So Mr. Jones maybe shot him.
Yeah. Well, because like all I have is Mr. Jones shot an intruder in his apartment at 12 midnight.
And then
So-
that's maybe when he wobbled and the doorman saw him slightly bleeding,
Yeah.
and
'Cause I-
somehow he wound up in Mr.
So
Scott's.
Mr. Jones shot an intruder that came into his apartment. So yeah, he did probably
At
wobble
11:55,
too.
yeah.
And then Mr.
he probably tried to get away, and that's when the elevator man saw him. Because that was 12:15.
Yeah.
The elevator man saw Mr. Kelly's wife go to Mr. Scott's apartment at 11:30, and she also disappeared after the murder. So maybe they both stabbed him.
Yeah. Or they were like
Maybe
planning
they were having
it.
an affair.
Yeah.
Probably having an affair, and you're probably just like, okay. And then, what else is there? Okay, so Mr. Scott wasn't located. Police were unable to locate Mr. Scott, so Mr. Scott could be a suspect. And then, when the police tried to locate Mr. Jones after murder, they discovered he had disappeared too.
Hmm.
So,
I feel
Mr.
like,
Scott and Mr. Jones, I feel like they were in on it together.
but I feel like, because it's like a murder mystery, like I feel like the what's most obvious is not it. Yeah.
Well, this one, because I have the one that says Mr. Kelly destroyed Mr. Jones' business by stealing all of his customers, so you would think that that would be motive, but that's too obvious.
Yeah.
So maybe
Especially-
he just thought he was an intruder and just
Yeah.
shot him because he was afraid.
What about Mr. Kelly's wife?
Yeah.
How-
Like, why did she just
who-
randomly
Whose room did she go into?
She went to
Mr. Scott's apartment or house or something?
Mr. Scott's apartment. So, and then Mr. Jones shot Mr. Kelly, and
But like, what's Smith's role in all of this? Because she's just
She went to Mr. Scott's, but then she
because
disappeared.
the knife was actually in her
her
yard.
yard.
And I don't know. I don't know how she saw. She said no. She's the one who said nobody left the apartment between 12:25 and 12:45 a.m.
But she also saw Mr. Kelly go to Mr. Jones' apartment at 11:55. So is she just hanging out in the lobby of their building?
Yeah.
She's
Like,
probably taking watch for something.
Mm-hmm. She's suspect.
yeah,
A knife with Mr. Kelly's blood was found in Miss Smith's yard.
with Mr. Scott's fingerprints on it.
so like, we can safely say that definitely like Mr. Jones shot Mr. Kelly,
Yeah.
probably just thinking like someone was in his house and Mr. Kelly got away.
And then he probably
And then
wobbled
Mr.
to
Scott
Mr. Scott's
stabbed him.
apartment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott is the one who had, whose
His-
workers were,
His blood was found in Mr. Scott's car, Mr. Kelly's.
okay. So he's probably, what if it was all an accident?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so Mr. Kelly's wife was in Mr. Jones's apartment.
and
And
they
then
got into an argument. And he
they got
stabbed
into,
him?
yeah, he probably, wait, is he the one who shot him?
Mr.
No.
Jones
He's the
shot
one who
Mr.
stabbed
Kelly.
him.
Mr. Jones shot him in the thigh. Mr. Scott
Got-
stabbed him in the
stabbed him.
back.
Okay, so if Mr. Kelly's wife was with Mr. Jones, he could have seen his wife with him, and then they could have got in an argument. He got out his gun and shot him in the thigh, and then he could have wobbled down to Mr. Scott's apartment. Who's the one with the business that had the
Mr.
motive?
Jones.
So what's
So that's
Mr.
like-
What I'm not understanding is what's Mr. Kelly's association with Mr. Scott for him to just go to his apartment?
That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm confused about. Because like
The
Mr.
elevator
Jones has the
man.
motive to actually hurt him,
Wait, who
but that's
said
not
that?
really.
Oh no, that was Miss Smith that followed Mr. Kelly. Or who
Yeah,
said
he
someone?
often Miss Smith often followed Mr. Kelly.
The elevator man saw Mr. Kelly's wife go to Mr. Scott's apartment. The blah blah blah. You're right. Why would he go to Mr. Scott's apartment? Interesting. Was he seen leaving Mr. Scott's apartment, or was he just seen leaving the building?
It just said he saw Mr. Kelly at 12:15.
There's nothing about
In the lobby. So
He
maybe
didn't even
he
say
was.
where. He just said like, it just says the elevator operator reported to the police that he saw Mr. Kelly at 12:15 a.m. It doesn't necessarily say
Mr.
So
where.
It
maybe
always
he never
says-
was there, because the blood was found in Mr. Scott's car. Maybe he was like trying to run out of the building and Mr. Scott saw him, or
Mhm.
The police weren't able to locate Mr. Scott after the.
Do we have any times associated with locations for Mr. Kelly after 12:15?
I think
Mr.
No,
Like the
Kelly,
last thing I
hold
have
on.
is when his body was found.
okay, so Mr. Kelly was going to Mr. Scott's room at 12:25. That's all I have right now. Like nothing after 12:30.
So he was just seen going into Mr. Scott's room at 12:25.
Yeah.
and then found in the park.
After being dragged.
I don't know. Why would he go into Mr. Scott's room after
And
getting
the elevator operator had to either see him in the lobby or to the elevator because of where
Right.
else.
Where else would he be?
Yeah.
Mr. Kelly, I think the elevator. What do I know? That's not what. Elevator man saw Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly was bleeding slightly, but he did not seem badly hurt. So I guess that was before he got stabbed.
It had to be.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you can manage with a gunshot wound
In
to
the
your thigh
yeah.
rather than like
A
a knife
back-
in your back. That's harder to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe, because back to the bloodstains in Mr. Scott's car, maybe Mr. Scott recognized who he was because he saw him wobbling and offered him help and was like, oh, come in my car, and then ends up stabbing him and driving him to the park where they found the body.
then why would he stab him if he was like recognized? who he
Because his
was?
wife is in his apartment, maybe he wanted to get rid of him.
No, isn't that Mr. Jones that
No.
she's with?
No, she's with Mr. Scott.
Oh my god, I'm so confused. Okay, so wait, so Mr. Kelly's wife is
With Mr. Scott.
Scott.
with Mr. Scott.
She left to his apartment
Why
like
would
at
Mr.
11:30, right?
Okay.
11:30, she went to his apartment.
Okay.
Oh.
And she
okay,
wasn't
so-
reported, like, no one saw her leave.
No, but it just said that his wife disappeared after the murder. So
Okay.
maybe her and Mr. Scott like ran away together.
Probably. I think Mr. Scott had motive because he thought that he was in the way probably of him being with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that could be
That could
something.
be motive.
That could be motive, like an affair. The affair between Mr. Kelly's wife and Mr. Scott. Scandalous.
We just can't figure out what the place of the murder. Well, I mean, unless it's the car.
Because we have to know who the murderer is, the weapon, the time, the place, and the motive. Do we agree, like, that the stab wound is what
Is
Killed
what
him,
killed
yeah.
him
killed him?
at
Yeah.
12:30.
Yeah,
At 12:30, right?
at 12:30. So we have the time and
The weapon.
the weapon. Mr. Scott is the one who killed him.
Or was it his wife?
I don't know, I feel like there's more to it. Like, there has to be more.
There has to be more to it.
I think it was in Mr. Scott's car. Because after he ran out of
I don't
Mr.
know.
Jones' apartment, the only other place that he was, or at least his blood was
But
found.
then the knife was found in Mrs. Smith's
Yard,
backyard. So what
yeah.
did he do? Did he, like,
Maybe Mr. Scott drove by and just tossed it,
Maybe.
Or
and
like-
it landed in
or
Mrs.
like-
Smith's yard.
he's working with Miss Smith and they, like, met up or something? And, like,
This
it happened
probably
at
was
her
planned.
place?
What if this was planned? This whole time.
Maybe
Because
she was
Miss
calling
Smith-
like Mr. Kelly's wife and telling him like where he's
Like,
going.
yeah, Miss Smith said that that nobody left the apartment from 12:45. So I feel like she was keeping watch. She's not really like
Mm-hmm.
a
So
deaf
she could have been
person.
like the watchdog.
Yeah.
But then how can she say that if he died at 12:30? He had to have left.
Right, because the doorman saw him at 12:15 wobbling out of the building. So maybe he wobbled out, and that's when Mr. Scott dragged him to his car, and then either him or his wife stabbed him in the car.
Maybe.
I'm just confused because it's like, so Miss Smith technically doesn't live in the building if she has her own yard, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So like, how did he just end up having the knife like fall like out of everywhere? It's just like her yard.
Her yard. I don't know. Maybe he brought it back to her to get rid of it, and she thought that she did. And then they all magically disappeared. Why did Mr. Jones disappear if he just thought it was an intruder?
Yeah.
Now that's fishy. I don't know why he disappeared.
Because, where is it? Mr. Kelly had destroyed Mr. Jones's business by stealing all of his customers. So I don't really think he thought it was an intruder. I think that's probably what he said to the cops. Because why would you run away if you're just in self-defense, shooting someone who you think is robbing you?
Yeah.
Something's not right. So 12:30 with the knife.
The knife was. Oh my god. Okay. So what do we have so far?
That's like definite.
Yeah. So the place.
Mm-mm.
No. The time.
12:30
The time
with
it
a
has
knife.
to be
It
12:30.
has to be. The weapon is a knife.
It has to,
Yeah.
that killed him, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all we know so far. Just time and
Mhm.
weapon. Place we don't know yet.
So like, it was obvious from the condition of Mr. Kelly's body that it had been dragged a long distance.
Well, he was found in a park, so maybe they dragged him like really
From the
far.
car to
yeah.
the park, like in a far
somewhere,
secluded
like,
place.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Because
In like
blood
a
was
bush or
his
something.
blood was found in Mr. Scott's car, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could probably find blood from the car distance to the park.
Maybe he
probably
was sitting
too.
passenger, and whoever was sitting in the back stabbed him in the back.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So who was
Because
sitting in the back?
if you got stabbed in the back, you're not realizing it.
Right.
It had to be like a surprise.
What if it was Mr. Kelly's wife?
You would
I
think
feel
that, but
like-
whose fingerprints were found on the knife?
Mr. Scott's. What if he was the one
Unless
who held
he
it
just
first?
like threw it to get rid of it, and like his fingerprints were. Well, but then again, hers would still be on it.
Yeah.
Unless
she
she
was
was like
wearing a
smarter
glove,
than that.
yeah.
And, like,
Unless
wore
she was wearing
gloves.
gloves, yeah. Which would be one of those fancy people that wears gloves every day.
Then if
I
she
don't know, like
wore
white
gloves, I mean,
I don't
she
know.
like
She knew
was
she was gonna
planning,
kill
knew,
him,
yeah.
right?
she knew prior.
So I think motive might be an affair. I just can't figure
Yeah.
out which one of them did it.
Yeah, or where exactly he died. Because
Right.
it could have been in the car, could have been. I feel
Could've-
like once they got to the park, I feel like he had to already have been dead.
Yeah.
Because if they just dragged his body, unless he was like near death and they dragged him and he just died in the park. But like,
Who stabbed him?
yeah.
I feel like wait, this is gonna sound really crazy. Okay, so he came from Mr. Jones's apartment, and he was wobbling down to Mr. Scott's apartment, right? So
No, we don't know that.
Okay, just like a scenario,
Yeah.
right? So like okay, and if he went into Mr. Scott's apartment, he would have seen. Oh no, this would make sense. I was just like maybe Mr. Scott would just drive him to the hospital to get the balloon out,
Or
and then Mr. Kelly's wife would have
I
stabbed him in the back.
I can see where you're going. What about he was at Mr. Jones, had a fallout. What if him and Mr. Scott are friends? So he's going to Mr. Scott's apartment to go try to talk to him.
Yeah.
Right.
And he sees his wife there, and it gets like physical, and like a lot starts going on. And
She
if
stabs him.
she stabs him in like self-defense of them two being
Scared,
there,
yeah, she
because
was
she was
a bit
scared and
scared
she didn't know what to
probably.
do.
The knife was just there, and
Because
she
if you
just-
think about it, if we're saying they had an affair, it's not like Mr. Scott has had to have to be around Mr. Kelly for
Yeah.
her to like
yeah,
Right.
get that
Right.
far.
Yeah.
You know? So it could have been like he went to his friend for help and then saw that and then
Yeah.
like it escalated.
yeah.
But then how did the doorman see him?
And then
It's
she
all
and
15.
then she wasn't
Mr.
unless
Scott
Mr.
probably
Scott was the one who like took care of it all of that afterward because she disappeared after that.
Mr. Kelly's wife also disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But then if the elevator man's off duty, no one's in the lobby except for Miss Smith.
Yeah.
So if Miss Smith is there and sees that,
It's just Miss Smith is what confuses me.
Yeah,
it
because,
feels
like,
there's
yeah,
this
'cause,
all,
like, Miss
mm,
Smith often
done.
followed Mr. Kelly, and then she gives us a time range where she said no one was entering or leaving.
Mhm.
So it's like
So I feel like this was all planned.
She's
but
lying.
she has to lie, because if the knife is in her yard, and she's
She's
following
obviously
him,
involved,
yeah, she
right.
has to be involved.
what if Miss Smith is like related to Mr. Scott?
Unless she's like Mr. Kelly's stalker.
Well, yeah, because why is she following him? That's
yeah.
not like a casual thing. Like, oh yeah, she just follows him all the time.
Yeah, probably they've met each other. If Miss Smith was related to Mr. Scott and Mr. Kelly were friends, and then Mr. Kelly's wife and them would have just like had like a meeting type thing. They would have met each other and just like become friends too, and then they would have met Miss Smith because hypothetically she's Mr. Scott's sister or something, or just like related in some way. And then when Mr. Scott found the knife that apparently Mr. Kelly's wife would have stabbed him with,
Mm-hmm.
then he's just like, why did you hide this in your backyard or something? I don't know.
But then still, like,
Hypothetically.
it's weird because it's just like he died at 12:30, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if it took place in Mr. Smith's apartment and he died, okay, granted the elevator man's off duty, so they don't really have a witness, but because if Miss Smith is in on it, but like, why is she there? Like, if she's the only one in the elevator and the door's open and you just see a dead body, like someone trying to like drag a dead body out, like what do you?
Unless Miss Smith, took the knife from Mr. Scott's apartment and stabbed Mr. Kelly herself and used his car as like a getaway car into the park to like set him up,
Oh.
and then got rid of the knife in her own yard.
That would make sense though.
I don't know how she would get into Mr. Scott's apartment.
Exactly, like how would she get in? And just
I mean, she could
grab
break
all his-
in, but
Yeah,
What
But
if
to
but the
that
knife is there.
yeah. To that
Yes.
extent,
I
to
don't know.
just kill the person you're stalking.
Well, who knows why she's stalking him?
there could be a million reasons why she's stalking him, and it could
Yeah.
be bad. It could be weirdly, I don't know, some type of obsession with Mr. Kelly. I don't know. What if she saw Mr. Kelly wobbling? Like he saw him wobbling out of the doors, right? So maybe he saw him, and then I don't know how she would get keys to Mr. Scott's.
Unless,
Hard,
like,
though.
my only thing is, like, it was to the point where, like, she saw it, and he's like, damn, you saw it, so, like, now you have to help, like, you,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you know, like, he
Or
kind of,
I'll
like,
kill
forced
you.
her,
And she
yeah,
was
like,
no, let me bury the knife for you.
yeah,
And that didn't work out.
like, because she would probably, I would hope I don't know, like maybe if she saw it, she would just be like, "What's going on?" And then like he's like, "Damn, like you have to just come on in now, cause you can't just let her walk away after she saw that."
Still don't know the place where he would have been murdered.
There's just so many places.
The apartment.
The apartment,
The car. The park.
the park, or Miss Smith's house. It could have been there,
Yeah.
because they could have just ditched the knife after they killed him. Or whoever killed him, I don't know.
But if Miss Smith was in the lobby stating that no one came out from like, what did she say, 12:15 to 12:45?
12:25 to 12:45.
Okay, and we think he was killed at 12:30, so there's no way he could have been at Miss Smith's house if she's standing in the apartment lobby.
That's true.
That's true.
But like, if she was there in the apartment lobby for that long, and they killed him, like, his body was dead for an hour. So I'm not saying they had to have transported him, like, right after he died. But it's just, he was definitely dead for an hour. So if it was 12:30 and he was dead and someone's trying to get rid of the body, like, if she was there during that time, she had to have seen, because that's like a 15-minute window for her to see a dead body.
So she was just like the watchdog then, I think.
She has some kind of a hand in it.
Mm-hmm.
There's like something that we're missing, sort of. I mean, when I first started reading the clues, I was just like, Miss Smith is the one who killed him.
I definitely thought it was Mr. Jones, because like from my clues, like I got everything about Mr. Jones shooting him, the bullets matching, and like the time of death, and
I don't know, there's not really that much about Miss Smith, so that's why I thought probably that she was,
But what would
Part
be her
of it?
motive?
I don't know. You said that she was stalking him, right? So like, it's probably, I mean, Mr. Kelly's married,
I feel like we're missing something.
so,
So we just know that the elevator man just went off duty at 12:30.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know like what time he came back or anything.
did he not hear like a gunshot from the building? Because gunshots are really loud, so.
That's true.
Like, I mean, he left
'Cause what
exactly
if
at 12:30, so if we say that he died, if he was shot at 12:30.
No, he was shot before then because he was in Mr. Jones's apartment at 11:55.
Okay.
It just says Mr. Jones shot at an intruder in his apartment building at 12 midnight.
12 midnight.
Doesn't
Okay.
necessarily say Mr. Kelly, but we're assuming because the one bullet that's missing was found in Mr. Kelly's file, like it matched.
Yeah, and he went in there 5 minutes before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would it take him 5 minutes to shoot an intruder?
Why was he in Mr. Kelly's apartment as an intruder? I mean, Mr. Jones' apartment as an intruder in the first
I think it had something to do with business because Mr. Kelly had destroyed Mr. Jones's business by stealing all of his customers. So I don't really think he was an intruder. I think he shot him on purpose.
Yeah.
He probably went there maybe to discuss business and
But
they just got into
it just got escalated within 5 minutes.
Maybe
Well,
Miss Smith is
He's
like,
already mad about his business being stolen, so I think he
That's
just
true.
had every intention of shooting. Maybe he invited him there and said, "Oh, come over and we'll talk about business,"
and Miss
just
Smith is
shot him.
probably the watchdog telling him probably if he's here or not. I mean, he's on his way up, so he could get his gun ready or something. I don't know.
But then that makes no sense because the elevator operator saw Mr. Kelly at 12:15. And if she was guard dog in the lobby from 12:25 when the elevator man got off duty and until 12:45.
No, it just says that she didn't see anyone leave the apartment from 12:25 and between 12:25 and 12:45. It doesn't say if like the elevator man was like.
No, mine says he left at 12:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine
Wait,
just
was
says,
she guarding his apartment or the building?
She just.
the elevator man said that Miss Smith was in the lobby of the apartment building when he went off duty.
At
Use
12:30. Okay.
So she had to be in the lobby from 12:25 to 12:45. So why would you often just follow Mr. Kelly?
That's a little weird.
The time we have at 12:30, weapon, knife, murder. Okay, so which one of you guys think it's Mr. Scott?
I'm torn between him and his wife.
Yeah. I don't know why I have a feeling why it's Miss Smith, but
Yeah, like
I have
it's
like
just
this
because I feel like
really-
there's nothing on her. It's just
it makes her more suspicious.
Yeah.
But it gives you no motive.
But we have like no motive. The only thing that we have is that
Everyone else has
she
motive
followed
but
him.
her.
Right.
Everyone else
Which
has
makes it
motive.
even fishier, but
and like we just like I don't know, the elevator man is just technically he was off duty when Mr. Kelly died, but where?
I have a feeling he died in the park.
he could have bled out in the park
Yeah.
after being stabbed and shot in the thigh.
Yeah, he was like close to death. Well, like maybe somebody shot him, and then stabbed him in the car.
I have a question. When you say the place of murder is like when he initially got killed, right?
Yeah, just the place of murder.
Okay. There's just this like one thing that's missing that I feel like ties everything together.
I feel like that scenario that you're telling me is more making sense. Like he would have gone to Mr. Scott's apartment and saw his wife with him, and then there would have been like a physical, like, fight going on or something, and then Mr. Kelly's wife would have been scared and stabbed him probably.
Mhm.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense,
But then Mr. Scott was just like, I'll take care of everything and just
Maybe. And then you said that Mr. Scott also disappeared? That he can't be found? After
Yeah.
the murder?
Yeah.
So maybe that's
he
what
can't
happened.
be found, Mr. Jones can't be found,
And
and
his
his
wife.
wife can't be found.
So
Yeah.
maybe they ran away together.
And
Mr. Jones is gone too.
Yeah,
that's
I don't
weird.
understand why he left. I mean,
especially
yes,
if he reported to the police that he just not really reported to the police, it's just shot an intruder.
But how do they know that?
over here it says Mr. Jones has told Mr. Kelly that he was going to kill him. So he
Oh.
has he's the main suspect.
So that could be why he
because-
left, because he might
Yeah.
think police might say, oh, well, he has motive, because
Yeah.
he said that and his business was
Yeah.
stolen
Yeah.
and all that.
Like, I for sure don't think
It's
Mr.
Mr.
Jones, like, he definitely, if anything, wounded him, but did not
Yeah.
kill him.
Yeah,
And maybe that's just what he intended to do. Maybe he really had no idea what he was
he was
doing with the
angry.
gun
I mean,
anyway.
he stole his business.
Yeah.
You know, that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, people would say that, "Oh my God, I'm gonna kill you."
But even
You
so,
do
like,
that.
he's technically in the clear, because, like, one bullet was fired, that one bullet was found in Mr. Kelly's thigh. So it's like, didn't do anything.
Whose gun was it?
Mr. Jones' gun.
Okay. So we know that he could have shot him, but not fatally.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that scenario makes more sense. Like
Yeah.
he would have gone to like Mr. Scott's apartment and then saw his wife with him in a physical fight. Mr. Kelly's wife stabbed him in the back. Because she
Why
was
wasn't there
scared.
blood found in Mr. Scott's apartment?
There was blood in the hall, but not in his apartment. So
But his thigh was bleeding.
yeah. Found on the carpet.
Even so, his
I
thigh
really
was
think he
bleeding.
wobbled
So
outside.
even if he didn't get stabbed in Mr. Scott's apartment, there still
There
should have
should
been
have
blood
blood,
from
right.
his thigh.
Yeah.
There should have been blood in the apartment in general.
So he wasn't in the apartment